Today is Friday, June 15th, 16th. And this is the second day of our 4-day June non-residential session here at Endless Path Zendo. We opened our opening words for this session speaking of the Lotus Sutra, which said we live in a burning, indeed a crumbling house. It's not a metaphor. It's a reality. We're old enough to live with it, to accept it, and to guide our lives in terms of the understanding that there are things we can do. There is a practice that can help us, not simply escape, but live lives of meaning and joy in the midst of the impermanence that is our very nature. So just bringing that home, the realities that step in daily to each of us. Now, we'll continue with our series of taishos from the new book coming out in the fall, if all goes well. A Zen Life of Bodhisattvas, Companion to the Zen Life of Buddha. And this is another teisho on Manjusri. It's chapter 4. Manjusri fails. A woman comes out of meditation. Gateless Barrier Case 42. So the next koan, also featuring Manjusri, takes a rather odd turn. Now the great and powerful Bodhisattva of wisdom in a Wizard of Oz scenario, ignore that man behind the curtain, stands exposed as neither wise nor powerful. While the koan starts off in the realm of myth, it returns us to our ordinary world, but a world transformed. Here's the case, sometimes called Manjusri and the young woman in Samadhi. Once Manjusri went to a place where many Buddhas had assembled with the world-honored one. When he arrived, all the Buddhas had returned to their original dwelling place. Only a young woman remained seated in Samadhi near the Buddha's seat. Manjusri addressed the Buddha and asked, "How can the young woman get near the Buddha's seat when I cannot?" The Buddha replied to Manjusri, "Awaken this young woman from her Samadhi and ask her yourself." Manjusri walked around the young woman 3 times, snapped his fingers once, took her to the Brahma heaven, and exerted all his supernatural powers, but he could not bring her out. The world-honored one said, "Even 100,000 Manjusris cannot awaken her." Down below, past 1,200 million lands, as innumerable as the sands of the Ganges, lives the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom in the early stages of practice. He will be able to bring her out of her Samadhi. Instantly, the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom emerged from the earth and made bows before the world-honored one, who gave a superior order. Delusive wisdom stepped before the young woman, snapped his fingers once, and at this, she came out of Samadhi. Wumen's commentary. The comedy old Shakya puts on the stage here is a great hodgepodge. Just tell me now, Manjusri is the teacher of the 7 Buddhas. Why couldn't he get the young woman out of her Samadhi when the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom, a beginner, could? If you can firmly grasp this point, then for you, this busy life of ignorance and discrimination will be the life of the dragon Samadhi. Woman's verse. One can awaken her, the other cannot. Both of them are free. A God mask, a devil mask. The failure is wonderful indeed. The name Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom is Aiken Roshi's translation. In previous English versions, he was simply Momyo. Aiken Roshi has kindly sharpened the case. First, what might this gathering of Buddhas be about? And why isn't Manjusri, Bodhisattva of great wisdom, attending this gathering, which is already over by the time he arrives? Most likely, Buddhists have come from across the universe to brainstorm on their endlessly challenging task, saving suffering beings. In short, they've come to talk shop. The story of their meeting and of Manjusri's later arrival is actually drawn from a sutra titled The Collected Essentials of All Buddhas, in which the Buddha gathering is revealed to have taken place in a distant galaxy named the Buddha land of Tenno Tathagata. Sutras say that space, which is filled with innumerable worlds and countless Buddhas, is not only unimaginably vast, but that incomprehensible periods of time, endless eons, pass between the arising of Buddha after Buddha. Here on earth, where we honor 7 such fully awakened beings of the past, tradition holds that the chain of Buddhas actually goes endlessly back through world cycles and big bangs. The koan, a concentrated, intimate form of this larger, more epic story, challenges us not just to accept, but to personally realize Manjusri's non-dual, vast, empty, selfless wisdom for ourselves. But to know it, we can't just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Instead, we ourselves get up, we must ourselves get up or be dragged up on stage and join the drama ourselves. The koan is as participatory as the living theater of the 60s. And what a show it is! For starts, when Manjusri is admitted to the gathering, all the Buddhas have returned to their original dwelling place. Why? And where is that place? Master Wu Men reminds me of Bob Dylan, who, like him, goes freely back and forth between the personal and the mythic. Here's a quote on Dylan from The Guardian in an article, Bob Dylan at 80, in praise of a mighty and unbowed singer-songwriter. This is from May of 2021. We are celebrating an artist who can transform his personal experience into something mythic, and then back again into something that is personally meaningful to his listener. This double operation is at the heart of his genius. Wu Men walks the same elegant line, and the connection may not be so far-fetched. On his album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, Dylan actually seems to quote directly from Wu Men's Gateless Barrier, with lines like, "I, like a shooting star, and climbed a mountain of swords and bare feet." So, Manjusri goes to a gathering of many Buddhas, only to find that all the Buddhas have returned to their original place. Aitken Roshi, in his commentary to the case, says that if you get the why and wherefore of this, the rest of the case will be in the bag for you. In short, the mythic will have become intimately personal. Except, not all the Buddhas are gone. Shakyamuni Buddha remains, and oddly, seated close to him is a young woman deep in Samadhi, out beyond her ordinary daily consciousness and seemingly rather stuck there. Why is a young woman able to sit near the Buddha while Manjusri, the Buddha's own teacher, can't? Shouldn't the Bodhisattva of perfect wisdom be closer to the Buddha than anyone? After all, he was the Buddha's own teacher. On a Zen Buddhist altar, Manjusri traditionally sits on the Buddha's left, the heart side, and in traditional Japanese Zendos, he even replaces the Buddha. Yet here he is, kept distant from the Buddha, while a young woman, a beginner no less, sits close to him. This part of the case draws on a dark aspect of Asian history and the world's. Classical Asian Buddhism, essentially monastic in its original form, left little room for recognition of women's abilities and achievements. Though wise women appear in sutras and koans, rarely do we meet with them as Dharma ancestors, that is, as fully acknowledged enlightened teachers. Fortunately, this is changing. Contemporary historical research is reclaiming both the ordained and lay enlightened women and lay men who were always there, embodying the living tradition upholding the ancient way of realized practice, but typically kept hidden by the shadow of patriarchal monastic lineages. So a decidedly misogynist history lies behind the koan point. It's not simply that an ordinary person is near the Buddha while a great bodhisattva isn't. It's that a woman is there, and doing rather well for a beginner too. Her youth emphasizing her lack of status and wisdom. In ancient China, the elderly were respected, not so much the young. As a woman, she carries the added stains of menstruation, pregnancy, and projected male desire, all of which would have made this case a kind of mind bender, creating a hook for the koan to take hold. A woman is close to the Buddha? A young woman? Impossible! Which is disturbingly similar to the hook in the classic koan Zhao Chu's Dog, the first koan in The Gateless Barrier. Asked by a monk if even something as lowly as a dog actually has Buddha nature, Master Zhao Chu simply answered, "Moo," a response that has resounded for over 1,000 years to the benefit of countless numbers of Zen practitioners. Our koan of Manjusri and the young woman asked, "Can even someone as lowly as a young woman have spiritual potential?" However, this is being used by the koan to empower the drama, not necessarily to uphold or approve of such a narrow view. Think of an actor screaming their lines rather than saying them. It's done for emphasis. Here, Wu Men, compiler of The Gateless Barrier, uses what the culture of his time offered to dramatize the point. But he might also have something more up his sleeve. In both the Lotus Sutra and the Vimalakirti Sutra, a Naga princess in the former and a youthful goddess in the latter put both monks and arhats alike to shame with their great and freely flowing, insightful Buddha wisdom. Perhaps then, Wu Men is giving a nod to a deeper truth. Practice, realization is open to all. Wisdom accessible to everyone. If so, bravo! Now, about the young woman's condition. The word samadhi is from the Sanskrit root samadha, meaning to collect or bring together, and is typically translated as concentration or unification of mind. In short, it's a condition of the mind absorbed in its own presence, in silent, one-pointed, attentionless attention, a selfless but not necessarily awakened condition. It can be pleasurable, even blissful. However, if we become attached and conceive of it as something more real than our ordinary experience, we create yet another obstacle. Daily life haunted by memories of something more special now seems not good enough. Clinging to such blissful states can be hard to shake. Some people, experiencing a degree of peace through breath practice, can hesitate to take on the challenge of koan practice, fearing it will threaten their happy enough condition. But if our aspiration is awakening, then faith becomes important. Faith in what? Faith in our actual nature and in our potential to awake to it. I'm calling it actual nature because true nature suggests it's in opposition to a false or untrue nature. Perhaps this is part of the young woman's issue. She's stuck in a similar dichotomy. Perhaps this koan can help her and us find our way beyond it. Roshi Kapleau used to say that Zen practice requires only one article of faith, that the Buddha wasn't a fool or a liar, when upon his great enlightenment he spontaneously exclaimed, "Wonder of wonders! All beings are Buddhas fully endowed with wisdom and virtue. Only their habitually self-centered thinking prevents them from realizing it." At some point, It is faith that leads us to think, if the Buddha wasn't a fool, or if he wasn't a liar, then what did he mean? All beings means me. But how can I be a Buddha, filled as I am with confusion, anxiety, anger, jealousy, pettiness? And if we're Buddhas, why all this suffering and injustice and anxiety? What's going on? Probing into such questions is the path of practice realization. Faith and doubt, which does not mean simple skepticism, are not really so different. Doubt is faith in action. Faith, the foundation of doubt. The doubt that Zen speaks of means openness, even wonder, a willingness to look directly, not accept prepared answers, but really ask, why is the world filled with injustice and difficulty? Who am I? Why was I born? Why am I here? Why must I die? Where am I going? It is a way of removing habitual blinders and reclaiming an innate freedom. While calm and steadiness are deeply valuable, they are not in themselves insight, which is the point of the koan. Why can't the deeply insightful bodhisattva of wisdom get close to the Buddha, while someone new, not even considered to have much potential, someone rather stuck too in an early phase of practice, is sitting close to him? The koan's initial challenge is, where did the Buddhas go and why? Its second is, why is the young woman close when Manjusri isn't? It seems rather crazy, even ridiculous, perhaps. As an aside, what does a young woman do when she awakens from her Samadhi? Raise a family, get a job, become Greta Thunberg and save the planet? Case 46 of the Gateless Barrier, stepping from the top of the 100-foot pole, offers perspective. Master Xishuang said, how do you step from the top of a 100-foot pole? Another eminent master of earlier times said, you who sit on the top of a 100-foot pole, although you have entered the way, it is not yet genuine. Take a step from the top of the pole, and the worlds of the 10 directions are your total body. You who sit on the top of a 100-foot pole, although you have entered the way, it's not yet genuine. Take a step from the top of the pole, and the worlds of the 10 directions are your total body. 10 directions. Stepping from the top of the pole of open practice, what might our young woman accomplish? Still, the fact that she sits close to the Buddha bugs Manjusri. So he asks, what's going on? The Buddha answers, awaken her and find out yourself, encouraging Manjusri to give his all. So he snaps his fingers next to her ears, circumambulates around her, even takes her up to the highest Brahma heavens, where the heavenly splendor itself might bring her around, or the terror of looking down from such heights might shock her out of her stuckness. Nothing works. Manjusri, the great teacher, the great bodhisattva, teacher of the past 7 Buddhas, fails. Why? This is another point needing personal clarification. Not only couldn't Manjusri get close to the Buddha, but he, the wisest of all bodhisattvas, can't even bring a young woman who's pretty much a beginner out of her samadhi. What gives? What is the function of wisdom? What is Manjusri's purpose? Why can't he enter the assembly of Buddhas? Why have all the Buddhas return to their original place? What is their original place? Why can't Manjusri get close to the Buddha while a young woman can? And why can't he bring her out of her limited samadhi? And if all this wasn't enough, there remains a final humiliating twist. After Manjusri fails, a beginner bodhisattva who we're told resides countless worlds, perhaps entire world systems or galaxies away, immediately appears and without hesitation easily awakens the young woman. Snap! Just like that, she comes out of her samadhi, which concludes the case. If we talk about koans being goofy, as we did the other day, Wu Men himself, compiler of the Gateless Barrier, calls this one a total mishmash, a hodgepodge of a comedy. And yet, the play's the thing. Here again is Wu Men's commentary on the case. The comedy old Shakya puts on the stage here is a great hodgepodge. Just tell me now, Manjusri is the teacher of the 7 Buddhas. Why couldn't he get the young woman out of her samadhi, when the bodhisattva of delusive wisdom, a beginner, could? If you can firmly grasp this point, then for you, this busy life of ignorance and discrimination will be the life of the dragon samadhi. If you can firmly grasp this point, then for you, this busy life of ignorance and discrimination, our daily life of ignorance, not paying attention, full of misconceptions, discrimination, making judgments all the time. I'm in here, she's out there. I like this, I don't like that, will be the life of the dragon samadhi. Why does he call it a comedy or farce, and what is the essence of the hodgepodge? The payoff is that if you can get clear on this, Wu Men says that for you, this very life, with its absurdities, challenges, and injustices, its joys, sorrows, ups and downs, will be the dragon samadhi. The implication is that you won't simply gain a condition of calm, peace, or bliss, won't simply have a momentary experience of oneness. Instead, this very life will itself be transformed into liberation, realization, enlightenment, like some great dragon that swallows everything. The entire universe will be consumed in a single gulp. The world of the 10 directions will be your total body. But hold on, wait, not so fast. Our ordinary life, with its problems, messes, misunderstandings, disappointments, and difficulties, will be enlightenment? Our ordinary time-factored, limited life, with its failed relationships, missed opportunities, anxieties, injustices, angers, sorrows, and fleeting joys, will be the great liberation? Really? Wu Men doesn't simply say that we should have faith in this. He's saying that it's simply so, offering us a challenge so tempting it motivates us to work hard to find out if it's true. The carrot is that the dragon samadhi sounds like what we're looking for. The stick is that we might make an effort and fail. Kapla Roshi used to offer encouraging words that went like this: if you don't let the Dharma down, the Dharma will never let you down. And nothing done sincerely is a wasted effort. In short, virtue is its own reward, its own benefit. And virtue doesn't need or needn't mean goodness. The virtue of iron is strength. The virtue of ice is cold. Practice is its own reward. Whether we deem it a success or not, there is virtue in making a sincere, wholehearted effort. Here again is Wu Men's verse for the koan. One can awaken her, the other cannot. Both of them are free. A God mask, a devil mask. The failure is wonderful indeed. One can awaken her, the other cannot. Both of them are free. A God mask, a devil mask. The failure is wonderful indeed. One can, one can't. Isn't that unfair? Shakespeare was an immediate success, but Melville never received a single positive review on his masterwork, Moby Dick. Picasso never failed to receive worshipful accolades, yet Van Gogh never sold a painting, and Blake died in obscurity and poverty. One can awaken her, the other cannot. Astoundingly, Wumen asserts that both are free. If so, how is Manjusri free? And how is the Bodhisattva of delusive wisdom also free? How is Einstein free, and how Walt Disney? And how about us? How are we free? Dragon, Samadhi, or no? Put on a God mask and people bow in awe. Wear a devil mask and everyone runs off in terror. How often in the course of a single day might we put on one mask and take off another? Can failure be wonderful indeed? We dread failure. We want A's, not F's. In the movie The Right Stuff, when Alan Shepard, the first astronaut into space, is sealed into his tiny capsule, perched at the top of a lethally explodable rocket, there at the knife edge of life and death, he utters his heartfelt prayer, "O Lord, don't let me fuck up." He's not asking to survive or to triumph. He's asking not to fail. Is Manjusri's failure wonderful indeed, or is it sour grapes? Is the koan saying that in the long run, painful experiences for the best? If so, isn't that a dodge? A kind of, oh well, good enough? Wouldn't that be to mistake a bell for a pot, as Wumen says elsewhere? Then again, a snake's inability to gallop makes it a truly marvelous snake, not a failed horse. To know such wonderful failure, we ourselves must awaken to Manjusri's nothing at all, to the vast wisdom of just this, in which there is no me, no you, no self, no other. This total failure of all our egotistic stratagems, all our old ploys and plots, is called enlightenment. And it is wonderful indeed. Yet vast nothing is not nothingness. Yamada Roshi encouraged his students to beat the empty sky. Even emptiness is not enough. We must take yet another step off the top of that pole. How? Each of us also lives within the wisdom of Momyo, the bodhisattva of delusive wisdom. Reacting to what is in front of us without any airs at all is Zen mind, beginner's mind, which, while it might already be a Western Zen cliché, is also filled with its own sort of power. Snapping his fingers, Momyo awakens the young woman, just like that. Quantum entanglement says that a single molecule far off on the other side of the universe will rotate in unison with its twin on this side, no matter the immense distances between. The bodhisattva of delusive wisdom and the young woman are a kind of entangled pair. He snaps his fingers, and she comes out of her meditation, adjusts her robe, brushes back a strand of hair, and heads off to speak to heads of state about climate change. They get each other, speak the same language. Why? How? And why is the bodhisattva of wisdom, Manjusri, himself left out in the cold? In an old Irish tale, the great warrior poet, shaman, and king Fionn, you might know him as Finn, one day decides to challenge his men with this question: what is the most beautiful music in the world? Unfailingly, they each give very good answers. Among them, the call of the lark, the laughter of a child, the sigh of a woman, the ringing of a sword on a shield, the baying of hounds, yet Fionn rejects them all. Finally, when they press him for the answer, he says simply, the music of what happens. What's the most beautiful music in the world? The music of what happens, which turns this brief tale into an Irish koan. Quantum mechanics seem to agree with Fionn. The microsecond by microsecond unfolding of ordinary daily reality is the result of the failure of all other options. Lines of quantum possibility extending in all directions collapse into the single line we rather naively and perhaps recklessly call reality. All other possible lines are then no-shows, failures. The taste of this tea, the pink of these blossoms, the caw of this crow, the failure is wonderful indeed. How great is this music of what happens? Of course, this is the ultimate view and the ideal. What about the tragic, painful, and terrible things that happen? The story does not say. We must sort that out for ourselves. The issue of suffering has no easy answer. And it's hard not to think of Zen practice realization itself in terms of winning and losing, attaining and failing. When we're passed on a koan, we can think, bravo, success, and feel great. Conversely, when stuck on a koan or wrung out of the doksan room, we can feel so deflated and awful we begin wondering why we even began doing this crazy Zen thing anyway. Yet realization, enlightenment itself, is the ego's great failure. Bob Dylan said there's no success like failure, and failure's no success at all. Love minus zero, no limit. Roshi Kapleau used to ask at workshops, let's say you have an alcohol problem. Who could help you more, a therapist or a reformed alcoholic? Then he would answer, both. They both could help, each in their own way. Contemporary Zen teaching looks at this koan of Manjusri, Momyo, and the young woman and says, take, for example, a modern jet plane. 100,000 Manjusris probably couldn't start and fly it, but a jet pilot can do it easily. A jet pilot can do it easily. 100,000 Manjusris could not. Manjusri, the great wisdom bodhisattva, and Momyo, the bodhisattva of delusive wisdom. Like the delusive wisdom bodhisattva and the young woman also form a pair. Manjusri can't do anything without Momyo. Momyo has no essential wisdom without Manjusri. What is the difference between these two kinds of wisdom? And as a final challenge for our hodgepodge of a comedy, which wisdom is the greater, Manjusri's or Momyo's? Though this may be off topic, here's a story. Back in the 60s, Dane and Henry Roshi had an old VW bus. One night as he was driving along a lonely rural road, the bus broke down. Cursing and grumbling, he started walking towards the lights of a farmhouse twinkling a mile or so ahead. As he walked along the empty road, the odors of trees and plants, of fields and forests came to him on soft night breezes. The Milky Way rippled and shone overhead. It became one of the most beautiful walks and memorable nights of his life. Wonderful. Wonderful failure, indeed. Turning again to Bob Dylan, the erstwhile failed Iron Country Minnesotan, formerly known as Robert Zimmerman. Right now, I can't read so good. Don't send me no more letters, no. not unless you mailed them from Desolation Row. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.